you guys. Well, first of all, hi, welcome back to the Charge YouTube. I'm so freaking motivated right now. So in this video, we got another Boston video. We have Coach Betsy and Coach Lindsay talking about Coach Betsy's Boston experiences. And oh my, I need a minute. If you're a mom, this is gonna speak volumes to you because she talks about training with kids, getting pregnant in the middle of training for races, how she had to switch up her running, how she took a lot of time off, and just why Boston means so much to her. She went through the death of her father at the start of training for the Boston Marathon one year. It honestly brought tears to my eyes as I was editing it. So in this video, you're really gonna get to know Coach Betsy on a different level. This is just, if you're doing Boston for All this Sunday, which hope to see you there, I'll be in the chat and running along for part of it. This is gonna pump you up. So definitely recommend watching it. Let's get right into the video right now.
Let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning because I think that makes sense. And we're not recording. We are recording.
We are recording.
I didn't put on any makeup.
No, that's okay.
That's okay.
I also did not, so we're fine. We're the same.
Maybe I'll put these on. Hang on.
There you go.
Let me shut the bathroom door. I didn't put in any makeup. I'm glad I did my hair, sort of.
So,
Boston.
Yeah. What was your, like, I always like to get right away to like the emotional relationship to the running and the racing. So like looking back, I guess we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. How did you feel about running your first Boston Marathon?
I said when I ran my first Boston that it was a once in a lifetime experience. And that was 5 Bostons ago.
Okay.
And I think every single time I go there, it's a once in a lifetime experience because I've run 5 Bostons and had 5 completely different experiences.
Sure.
The first one was when I was just young and dumb and I didn't know anything. This was a long time ago. Actually, the first one was it will be 20 years ago. So the 2021 Boston, I'll fast forward, and that's my next goal. And I sure hope that race happens. Will be 20 years from my first one.
So 2001.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had started marathoning a few years before, basically because somebody told me I couldn't do it.
Ah. Proper motivation, if there ever was such a thing.
I'm pretty motivated by that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Hold on one second.
Right, exactly. Hold my coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Hold my coffee right there.
Nice.
So I'd run 2 or 3 marathons and I got kind of close. And my dad was just a wonderful man. And we lost him a few years ago, but he was one of my great cheerleaders. And I have a very, very supportive family. And my mom is just the best race watcher ever. And my husband is a great race watcher. And they're just behind me. They've been behind me on my whole running journey and really supported it. And for that, like I appreciate them so much because I'd run one marathon, my first marathon. I was pretty close to qualifying. And my dad was like, you might be able to do this. And he was like a man of few words and he could just kind of look at me and instill that motivation in me. And this is before all the things we have now. And, you go and you drive the length of your training loop and use your watch and just go and run.
Right.
And I didn't know anything about paces or nutrition or anything. I just followed. I started with like the Hal Higdon plan.
Yeah.
And did pretty well. And,
nice.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah.
And then I got there and ran that first Boston and my husband and I were engaged. And this was before,
sorry, just to be clear, you qualified already to get into your first one.
I qualified on either my second or third marathon. I was pretty close on the first one, and I think it was either my second or third marathon. The Columbus Marathon in Columbus, Ohio. That's where I'm from originally.
Gotcha.
So that's where I cut my marathon teeth.
Cool.
And I can't wait to get back to that race because Ohio is awesome and people are awesome.
I've heard that.
Flat. And
Nice.
I really would like to get back to that race someday. So yeah, I qualified in Columbus, and that was very, very exciting, and then worked toward Boston. And my husband and I were engaged while I was training for that. He actually, we got engaged, I think, actually, while we were training for that. And one of the reasons why I'm married to this man who is not a runner is he would wear rollerblades with
Mm.
me while I would go out on a 20-mile run. And he would wear rollerblades and like cotton socks because, you know, these are like the days before technical fabric.
Right, right, right.
And he rollerbladed like 19 miles next to
So,
me until his feet bled.
oh, he's out there
Like,
working.
I love you. This is
That's
the guy
awesome.
for me.
Right,
This
right.
is the guy for me. And that support, you know, was there then.
That's
And
awesome.
now the support is a little bit different in the fact that, you know, he's okay with me to go run and he'll watch the kids and help fit that into our family schedule.
Right, right. But just
Um,
as valuable.
totally. Because without him and without a supportive partner, having 3 kids, like that is really hard.
Right, right.
It's really hard to do. That's a lot of time. It takes a lot of
Totally.
time to run a lot of miles.
Right.
So that's when I decided, I was like, okay, he's the one for me.
Nice.
So that was spring. We went to Boston, and my parents came and my husband came and ran that first Boston in soccer shorts
Okay.
and a tie-dyed t-shirt.
Excellent.
And I did not think it would be a very good idea to stop at the water stations because I thought those are just going to get in my way of,
Right,
you
right.
know,
You don't want to get slowed down. Right.
I don't want to slow down. And it was funny because it's so long ago and the race has changed so much. Like they just drove me to the buses that were close to the start. This was before also, you know, I thought we didn't book a hotel in time. We didn't know anything. I had no
Right.
money. I couldn't afford the finisher jacket.
Oh,
You know, it was like $75 for a finisher jacket. And I was just getting
yeah.
started off in life. And I'm like, I just paid to register for this. I can't even afford
Right,
the finisher jacket. But we
right.
got there and they met me at the start in Hopkinton,
That's great.
which you can't really do that
Yeah,
anymore.
you can't do that. Yeah.
And you know, it was such a smaller race. Like I could see the elites then,
Right.
and the corrals were smaller. And it was really just, it's changed a lot over the years. So I ran that first Boston and didn't stop at the water stops. It was a sunny day. You can see my tan. I
Right.
don't do very well on sunny days. I'm a shade girl. Give me like 30 degrees and raining and I'm good. So it was a pretty sunny day. I really didn't know much about the course. You know, like the internet was different.
Yeah,
Now you
right.
can look up a course and get 15 YouTube videos on how to
Right.
run.
Right. There was not that digital support world that you could reach to.
Exactly. So I ran and I got to Heartbreak Hill
Hmm.
and I threw up
Ooh.
and I didn't know what to do. It was
On
just a little
course,
bit.
like on the top of the
I
hill.
actually didn't throw up like out. I just threw up in my mouth and I had to
Oh.
make a little game time decision and I was like, so I swallowed it. I
Oh,
did get a drink then and I was like, this is gross.
there
And I
you go.
kept going and I made it through, you know, I made it up Heartbreak
Huh.
and made it to the finish.
Good for
And,
you.
you know, this is before you're running with cell phones. So it took a while to find everybody. It was really just such a different experience. But that was
Right, right.
Boston #1.
And so overall, a good experience. You felt like this is like great at that point.
I was just amazed. I mean, it was my 3rd or 4th marathon ever.
Yeah.
So I was just amazed at the tunnel of fans
Mm,
from the very beginning all the way to the end.
mm,
And my husband is and my family are really good race watchers. Like they're like, okay, give me a goal. They wanted to see me as many times as they could on the
oh, wow.
course.
Okay.
So I ended up seeing them 2 or 3 times throughout the time. Like, you know, they would drive and hop out of the car and go onto the
Right.
course. And
That's a pretty good trick because for those who don't know, that the race is a single line as opposed to any sort of loop or anything. So you don't, as a spectator, you've got to do that work. You've really got to
yeah,
bounce around, and the tough thing is the way that they close off the streets, right, to cars and automobiles. So you've really got to like be strategic about seeing your person who's on course. It's not easy.
No, it is not easy. And I really am married to, he's really good at that. He's the kind of
Nice.
guy who can look at a map and fold it up and it's in his brain. It's
Oh
amazing.
wow, that's a good trick too.
Yeah. So I saw them a few times, had a little bit of trouble connecting with them at the
Yeah.
end, and just ended up, and of course, then also didn't know you needed to eat at the end of a marathon.
Right.
Who knew back
Recovery.
then? I wish
Yeah.
I would have had a coach.
Right.
So they found me finally after a long, long time, wrapped up in a Mylar blanket, just kind of sitting by a building, shivering a little bit. And then
Oh,
the hotel was out of town, and they, scooped me up and got me to the car, and we made that long drive back out, and
nice.
then got some
But
good dinner. But it
but
was
you had done it.
wonderful. Hmm?
That's awesome. But you had done it. You closed the loop. You showed up. You got all the way to the end.
Yeah. And I thought, that's my one Boston. Like, I'm done now.
Gotcha.
I've done it. I've done the Olympics. This is like
Hmm.
my Olympics as a kid. I was 25. So
So then moving forward through your next few races and 5Ks and 10Ks, like when do you think that you made that switch into, okay, I'm going to do training cycles plural and try to, I don't know, go again and get to a third and fourth?
we then got married, and I would do some running. Actually, right after that Boston, I paced my sister-in-law through the Flying Pigs. So I kind of did like a
Ah,
double. It was the third Flying Pig marathon ever. That's one in Cincinnati. And
Cincinnati, okay.
yeah, so did that one and just talked to her the whole time. I don't know
Hmm.
if she appreciated that, but I was like, I'll run with you. I'll do this. So did that one, and just, I've always loved to run. I mean, I started out on the track. I started out on the
Okay,
soccer field, and I was a really good, well, I wasn't a very good soccer player, but I was a fast soccer player, and I could get down
sure.
to the end of the field before everybody, but then I would just kick the ball out of bounds. So we figured
Gotcha.
running would probably be better.
Right, right.
But we ended up having, like, changing running just a little bit. And I would pop into like 5Ks and 10Ks or whatever, but whatever would come up. And then the Columbus Marathon was the thing. So I think I did that one more time. And then we ended up actually moving overseas. He went to Singapore for a little while. Well,
Oh,
actually, we moved down to Atlanta for a little bit. And then he ended up getting a job in Singapore and then a job in Hong Kong. So then
hmm,
I moved to Hong Kong, and we were there for 3.5 years. And I didn't do a lot of running in Hong Kong because,
okay.
quite honestly, the air quality in China, not
Right.
so good. And also, I got pregnant with our first child. So shortly after we moved there, I was pregnant for the most part, while we were there.
Yeah.
So just a lot of walking and yoga and spin classes and things like that inside. And then we lived there for about 3.5 years. So I didn't run a lot, but I was always fit, just because, like, you gotta do that, right?
Hmm.
And lots of walking. And we lived on, I mean, there's like a big mountain in Hong Kong. So I would like push the stroller up the mountain.
Right.
If
As a
you ever see
workout.
a beautiful picture of the Hong Kong skyline, like, we lived right in the middle of it. And here we
Huh.
are, like, doing the stroller Olympics, pushing up. So we need to
Wow.
have a stroller competition, because I think it'd be pretty good at that. But we did a little bit of, I did a little bit of good running, like when I lived in Atlanta the first time, and got a
Mhm.
good taste of like some trail running and some really fun races that happen here. We were only here for like a year, and there's like this uphill race called the Hogpin Hill Climb, which is a race up a mountain. And I was
I
really
love the
getting my groove,
local.
and then we moved, and then the whole baby thing, like, babies kind of mess with your running.
Right.
So there was a pause on that. And then we moved to New Jersey, and then had another baby, because, it was just kind of getting back into running, getting myself together, and then had another baby. Babies do that. That next baby was a really, really big one. So he was almost 11 pounds. He was like
Oh,
10, 15. He was
okay.
enormous. Just because, like, apparently genetics, and that's what happens. So we made like 9, 10 pound babies, big babies. Don't do that.
Okay.
And I wanted to get back in shape
Okay.
from that. I mean, still fit, and I'm still working out and all of
Hmm.
that, and
Hmm.
doing, join the Y and things like that. So he was
But now
born.
you've got like your impetus for it. Like now you've got your mission.
Yeah. And really, when you have an 11-pound baby, I had some issues with my abs and diastasis recti, which is like Steph Bruce is my running hero because her abs essentially separated and my abs separated, and it was pretty yucky. And running was the thing that made me feel strong and secure.
Right.
So it was a really positive feeling. And also it was like the really only time that I had to myself. So I would get up and I'd go run a little bit and ran a half marathon and did pretty well. And then I hooked up with an incredible team in New Jersey called the North Jersey Masters. Although I wasn't yet a Masters runner, they were very welcoming. And I got to run with a lot of older seasoned runners who were kind of coming down in their times, but had just incredible information, and they saw potential and really helped me to get into it. So then I'd start to do some track workouts and tempo workouts, and then it was like, ooh, that's the secret sauce right there.
Yeah.
So thought that I would go back and do another Boston. And
so what was the time gap from the 2001 to when you did your next Boston?
2 children.
2 children, yeah. That's a better measuring scale.
I could tell you exactly, because don't all runners have like a list of their runs?
I do have a list. Yes.
A spreadsheet. I can pull up my spreadsheet.
It's funny. Honestly, I keep mine so that I don't have to think of it, so that I don't have to try to remember.
So this must have been 2015 was the first one, the one that I went back to. 2015.
So 2001 to 2015.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay, great.
And a couple of kids and a whole bunch of life experience in between. But that's when I turned into like a real runner. And I attribute that to my teammates, the North Jersey Masters. That group is incredible. Nice. And living right outside of New York, we were 35 minutes outside of New York. So then it was like, okay, well, I'm going to run the New York City Marathon. Okay. And ended up getting ready to run that, and then it was canceled because of Superstorm Sandy. They canceled it. Right. Yeah, they canceled it Friday before the race on Sunday. So that was tricky. So it's very funny because we were planning to have a third child, but she's actually a year younger than she should normally would have been, because I was like, honey, I need to run this marathon first before we have another baby, because I know there's going to be another delay. Ended up running New York, qualifying for Boston. I got pregnant right after New York. Okay. That's in November. I registered, and then, so, you had New York, and then I got pregnant, and then had a baby, but registered for the Boston Marathon while I was pregnant, I think, like, because it comes out in September, and she was born in September. And, which is kind of a weird feeling, because it's like, here you are. I mean, I was out to here, and I'm making hotel reservations and all of that. Right. So I went back and, then had another baby, ran that next Boston when she was 7 months old, and I think 1 or 2 days. Huh. So I had her in this cute little blue and white outfit, and I've got a great picture of my teammates with like the medal around the baby, and we call her Coach, like they call her Coach, because she was my coach. Right. I bought a cheap treadmill off of Craigslist and popped it down in the basement, and would run my long runs on the weekends when I could. And then a lot of my weekly training miles were on the treadmill, just carving out that time. Really? Treadmill training. I'd take one to preschool, and then, walk back home from the preschool drop off. Yep. Put her down for a nap, go down, and I have this workout called Race the Baby. And she just actually walked in the door. You put the baby down for a nap, and you see how many miles you can get in before. And then you see how many miles you can get. You're just like, I'm just going to do what I can do. And then you have the baby monitor in the cup holder. Yeah. And you're go, 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 go. And then the baby wakes up, and you're like, you go upstairs, middle of your run, push pause on the treadmill, go upstairs, and then get the baby out of the crib, and try not to sweat on the baby while you're picking them up. Right. And then pop them in the bouncy seat and just run and get whatever you can get. I mean, that was my training plan for the most part. Back for more miles. Nice. Yeah. As much as I could until she needed me. And then of course I would help her out.
Right. That's
So that was
awesome.
my training plan. And I ended up going and running a PR. I
Okay.
think that was one of my most proud. I think I ran 3:19.
This is still 2015.
This is the 2015.
Wow.
So still had separated abs,
Oh,
3
okay.
kids, no core at all.
Gotcha.
And it was a kind of a cold and rainy day. It was just really good weather for me.
Right. But
So
you
that was,
still got after it, because the first one, I don't know the time, but
it was like 3:40,
right.
3:41.
Right. But I'm sure, like, in terms of your experience, like you mentioned, just massive life experience and then a few more races, you probably worked your way through with this just as much as anything else.
I think marathoners, I think I've done better in the marathon as I've aged. I think
Okay.
because maybe time feels like it's going faster. And also like we're little more patient, and also maybe my lifestyle's a little cleaner, sleeping and eating better. And
Totally. I agree with that. I mean, I've done it a few times, but just globally across racing and marathoning, like when you're brand new and you don't know anything, everyone's had those moments. There are like key things that you need to know about eating and nutrition that you might have known and learned that lesson, but even before you started, but you don't really soak it in until you really need it, or like do it incorrectly. But then, like you're saying, you get a little bit older, and it's not just the information that you pick up, it's also like your decision making gets better.
Absolutely. And with racing, in terms of trusting yourself and not going out too fast. I mean, I've done a lot of fly and die in the marathon, and maybe because I didn't trust myself in my ability in that. So just those experiences. There's the one, she's not a baby anymore.
Don't look now.
Yeah, she's going to start kindergarten.
Oh,
on
that's
Monday.
Great. Congratulations.
In my office right over there.
Right down the road near the kitchen.
Yeah. So then that was a great experience. So then I have a dear friend who, again, the people that you meet in running in your life and virtually are really one of the best parts about running, because you realize you're all in this together and you're all working together toward these goals. And it doesn't matter like your specific times and all of that, but you're pushing each other and you're motivating each other. So I have a dear friend who was working toward 10 Bostons in a row. And I'm like, oh, I'll go. I mean, you're going, I'll go. It's right there. It's just up the road. We were living in northern New Jersey. So, not too hard to get to.
Sure.
So ended up going back the next year. Let's see. Did a little bit better that year. The baby was older. The outfit was cute. I'll get you some of these pictures. I had this cute yellow and white striped outfit.
Excellent.
And we just, we left the 2 big kids at home and just took her. And I was just finishing up nursing too. Are you comfortable with mommy stories?
I'm comfortable. You know me.
Okay. So that was the year. Well, I guess it was the first year, and I was sitting in the athletes' village, and I was nursing. I nursed my kids, each of them for a year apiece. Give me a goal. I was like, I'm going to nurse these kids for a year, and worked hard to do that. Gotcha. And that's a long day for a nursing mother to be away from their baby. And I was a stay-at-home mom, so I didn't go away very often. So I actually took a breast pump to the athletes' village. And I had my New York City orange poncho that they hand out to you afterward, and taped that thing up and took care of business right before the Boston Marathon. And
good for you. That's awesome. Do what you gotta do.
It was just it was like an old cheapo little pump. So I just tossed it in the garbage. Nobody knew. There's all kinds of crazy stuff in the garbage in Athletes Village anyway.
Oh yeah.
So that was that. Then the next year, her outfit was clinched. It was good. I ran a couple minutes faster. I ran a 3:15, that great dynamic with my team, great training partners for the long races. And my goodness, I wish charge was a thing back then.
I know, right?
Because as a mom, I mean, I ran like so many weekly miles by myself.
Gotcha. At this point in this is 2016, right?
Yeah.
So did you feel like really dialed in? It sounds like you had just kind of a better mindset and
Yeah, because
strategy
my
and all that.
training was consistent. I was
Yeah.
starting to do that tempo work. I was starting to do that speed work.
Yep.
I was looking at my paces and training smarter,
Right.
getting the miles in,
Yep.
consistently, because
Hmm.
running, I mean, I love running, and it's such an outlet, and it just feels so good. I think I almost like the training more than the racing
Sure. Okay.
because of just how it fits into life.
Hmm.
And it's just so good to feel like your ship is pointing toward a goal.
Totally, totally. And this is always the point that I look for it in everyone's story. Like, when did, because everybody has the years, plural usually, of like not really knowing what to do and still like working it out. And like, if
Yeah.
this is something they want to do, but I always think of our runners, right? Especially the beginner folks that are like, well, I'm not sure I'm any good at this. I was not very good at it either at the beginning.
Right.
And then you finally start to feel like you're working towards something that's purposeful. So that's sounds like for you it was around 2016.
Yeah. And it's like that age, you hear of like your athletic age or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I was a baby athlete in my soccer pants, and that was
Hmm.
great. And my cotton tie-dye t-shirt, my goodness gracious. Who runs Boston in a cotton t-shirt,
I don't know.
girl? Never, which is why I always say that like charge is the best thing to happen to running since technical fabric. And it goes back to my cotton t-shirt for Boston. That's why I think about that, because we've come a
Gotcha.
long way in that way. But then, so, I had a good race that year. I think I ran 3:15, and never in a million years did I think I could run a 3:15 marathon ever,
Really? Really?
ever. Yeah.
Hmm.
I was a 400-meter runner in high school.
Right. Because you're coming from the track and field track
Yeah.
side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. So just kept going and just kept going. And then we moved again.
Okay.
So we moved again, and I lost that whole awesome group. And I keep in touch with them,
Yep.
and ended up going back and connecting with them again the following year.
Cool.
And that year was a hard one. It's funny because I've had personal bests on that course, and I've actually had personal worsts on that course. So this was a tough year. And this is where training really helps to ground me, because we lost my dad very suddenly, right around Thanksgiving. He came down. We had just moved down to Atlanta in like August, literally like the day before my kids were ready to start for school. We got here, and my family came down to visit for Thanksgiving, and my dad got sick, and we took him to the hospital, and he never came home. So that's about the time where you start to train for Boston, Thanksgiving, the holidays, and all of that. And I poured he was sick for a while, actually. I mean, it was Thanksgiving through Christmas. He died a few days before Christmas. So my whole family was here from Ohio. I had a house full of people. I had 3 kids. It was a really trying time. And here we were in this brand new place. But thank goodness my family could come to me, because I couldn't have done this, if it happened in any other way.
Yeah.
So we camped out for 6 weeks, and I couldn't go to the hospital that often because I had these little kids nursing a kid, kids in school and travel and all that. So my mom would go, my brother would go, my sister-in-law would go, my other brother would go. It was tough. So it was like, okay, this one's for you, Dad.
I was going to ask, looking back now, would you say that this deep emotional time in your life, was it net help to have running and go for it in that way?
Yes. And I have some tears in my eyes about this. Yes. Because I always talk about how running is more than just running. And it really is. It's kind of your identity. It's your goal. It's who I am. Part of who I am. It's not just who I am. I am all sorts of other things too, but
clearly.
And it's who I want to be, and I don't want to ever stop.
Yeah.
It's because there's just so much good that carries over to the other parts of your life, or my life, and that as well. And it can really help through good days and it can help through really, really bad days.
Really tough days. Yeah.
Like I ran on my wedding day, I ran on my birthday, I ran on my dad's funeral day, the big days. You just,
Right.
it helps you through all of it. So it was a tough time and a really stressful time. And
Right.
I poured my soul into training.
There you go.
I was cruising. I did great. I had a great training cycle. Knock on wood, I'm a pretty healthy runner. I know when to back off, when it's time to back off to fix things. And, I have a lot of years on my legs. So I'm going to knock again on wood.
So
pretty healthy, great training cycle. And I got there. It was a pretty sunny day. And I carried his ashes with me in a little bag and put it in my pocket.
Right.
And so he ran with me.
Awesome.
And, the stress of everything, I got to the halfway point of that marathon and I just cried and it came out.
Started bawling. Yep.
It all came out. It was kind of like, dealing with the grief. I'm a busy mom and training and keeping the kids' lives going. There's not a lot of time to sit back and feel. And I did right there. So I had my very worst time of any marathon ever on that course. But it was the most cathartic thing.
Right.
My brother and sister-in-law came. They didn't care that I had the worst time.
No.
I finished the Boston Marathon.
Sure.
And my worst time was still a pretty good time. And I remember pulling over to the side and seeing my friend's husband right there. And I, I ran with my phone and music and things like that. So I got my phone out and texted my husband. I'm like, I'm going to be a minute. But all of my grief came out at the 13. It was like the 13.1 mile mark there.
Right.
That wasn't my favorite second part of a marathon ever.
Sure.
But
probably your strongest emotional connection, sounds like.
Yeah. And my mom was there, and being, we all went through that together. And we've all gone through these races together, and races are so emotional. You get the highs and you've got the lows and all of that. And it was just a chance for all of us to be together and really, really feel that. And it just felt so good to have them there. And, I think I mentioned my brother and sister-in-law came in and surprised me, and my husband was there, and
and your dad was there.
So
awesome.
That was my worst one, but it was good.
But it was also in some ways maybe your best one. That's great. That's what I want to hear about.
Yeah. And then it was like, well, okay, well, that was really bad. I'm going to have to fix this. So I got to go back. 2018, during 2017, you know how you run into people and they say something to you and it just kind of gets back into the back of your mind. So I tend to like talk to people on the way to the corrals.
Okay. Yep.
Imagine that, right? I was talking to this girl in 2017 and she said, I'm doing Boston to Big Sur.
Oh, right.
Like,
you were like,
because I've now also, as a mom, figured out how to get a vacation. You have to go run a marathon.
Yeah, right.
And that's,
I've heard that.
And women can take a vacation just to take a vacation. You don't have to run a marathon.
Yeah.
But I kind of like it. So I ended up the next year doing the Boston to Big Sur challenge, where we went back and I ran really well in Boston. So I fixed that. So Boston to Big Sur was like my big comeback.
Okay.
Because, tell me I can't do something. And that was me thinking, I can't do that. So I was motivated.
Right.
Again.
Gotcha.
And I ended up, going back to Boston. That was the year of the cold.
Oh, cold, wet rain.
I think that was the year of the cold, where it was just
miserable.
Brutal. I ran a PR that day.
Wow. Good for you.
And I think because, the race is on a Monday and my in-laws had come to watch the kids. No, my kids came. They wanted to come.
Okay.
Because they were jealous that they got left behind that year. And they wanted to come. I pulled my kids out of school for the day. And like,
Oh, wow.
if you can imagine, I'm not like the kind of mom that's going to pull kids out of school. Like,
I was
you
gonna
know,
say best
you
mom
have
ever
school, you go
though.
to school. We don't skip
Right.
school around here.
Right.
So I pulled the kids out of school and we had to fly home that night, that
Oh,
cold, cold Boston day.
that's a
So I was
long
on the
day.
timeline and it was
Cold,
like,
wet,
okay,
rainy.
I got to get
Yeah.
my kids back. I'm like, I'm either going, you know, if I stop, I'm going to get hypothermia.
Mm-hmm. Can't stop
And
moving.
if I stop, and then if I get hypothermia, I'm going to have to change all of these plane tickets, and
Right.
I'm
All
not
the
going to get my,
flights.
I'm not going to
Yeah.
get my kids in bed.
Right. Or
So
to school.
I took my hat and I just pulled my hat down. I put sunglasses on so the rain
Hmm.
would stay off most of my face,
Yep.
and I just ran. And I feel
Just
like that was
hammered.
a run where I just ran for my life.
Nice. Nice.
And had a burger and a beer and a
Mm-hmm.
shower,
Yep.
and then hightailed it to the airport and sat in between my two kids or the two big ones on the way home. And
Wow.
I was like, can mommy put her legs up on you? And then I would be like, can mommy put her legs up on you? And I waddled off that plane. So I don't advise
Oh,
hopping on an airplane without any recovery. But
that is such a tough schedule to do it in one day like that.
this is one of my favorite
Oh, here we
jackets.
go. Yeah,
So,
show it off. Right up to
and
the
then
camera there.
13 days later, so Boston Big Sur happens where it's either 8 days, what is it, like 8 or 13? So there's, you know, and it's 2 marathons, 2 coasts, because Big Sur is one of the most beautiful marathons ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to go 13 days later and go to California. My mom came with me and we had a really, really nice time. I just enjoyed that. So then I had to do that the next year too.
Wow.
And did better in that whole marathon challenge, putting them together. And
Yeah.
throughout this whole time, learning the marathon and learning how to like pace and trust my training,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm going to be okay at the end and that it's
Mm-hmm.
okay not to start out too fast.
Sure. Sure. It sounds like
Um,
you've conquered like even the what I always think of as the toughest parts of the marathon, which is all the satellite things that right before and then after of just like scheduling and your family and people coming in and out, and then you add, you know, flights and flying home and then flying across country, a challenge in itself. So
it is logistically, well, that's mom life right there.
sure.
It's like all a house of cards. It's this, this, and this. So actually this year
Hmm.
was the year that I was like, okay, I'm going to sit this year out. And it was such a hard decision.
Hmm.
Anytime that that registration comes up, because you don't want to ever take your qualifying, or for people who fundraising, like I don't want to take qualifying for that race for granted. I
Right.
know how special that is, and I know how special
Exactly.
that race is, and I mean, there's a unicorn for a reason,
Exactly.
because
I'm
it's
I'm
just
with you.
special.
for
It's
for people that don't know, and like this is like why we wanted to offer this race. This is not a race that is like out and out directly sponsored by someone else other than charts. Like we wanted to offer people a chance to do this race. There's many reasons to do it, and there's lots of uh, reasons to come together just to have any kind of marathon. But specifically, the Boston Marathon is very difficult to time across the year your training with qualifying in order to get in, if that's your track. There's charities, which is another great organization too, but it's very difficult, as you're describing, to even show up to the start line just per the rules. So if you're unfamiliar with that, that yours is a great description of now you realize how important your own qualification is if you're on that track year to year. So
and yes, and the ability to run, because
mhm,
any day we could lose our ability to run. Like I don't
mhm,
take that for granted, not a single day. You know, there's like that saying that like someday I won't be able to do this, but this is
sure.
not that day,
Right.
because life can change like that.
Totally. Totally.
And so I struggled not signing up for this year. So I'm actually starting to think about next year,
Cool.
because I would like to 20, that marks 20 years from that first year in cotton.
Gotcha. Yep. To bring it
Um,
full circle.
to bring it full circle as a maybe a little bit smarter runner, maybe, you know, a little bit more savvy runner.
Right.
And so right now I'm trying to do a lot of things now before build up to that even starts. I'm
Right.
really dialing in my nutrition and really dialing in my prehab
Yeah.
and trying to do those little things, those little 1% things. Cause I'm a hard worker. I'll go out there and I'll hammer out miles. I love it. But I'm trying to be a smarter worker and do the things that, you know, I tell my athletes to do.
Right. Exactly what we tell our runners to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's tough.
You know, walk the walk or run the run. But I mean, I
Right.
do that, but really focusing on that because I would like to run my fastest Boston and then maybe, maybe my fastest marathon.
There you go. So that would be in the 3:15 range or
No.
faster.
Well, I
Oh.
ran 3:03 in
Oh.
Chicago.
Oh, okay. Well, don't
Never
let
in a
me.
million years. Everything came together in that race. That was last October. So I'll presumably get myself a pretty good starting spot
Right.
for Boston.
Oh yeah,
If it happens
definitely.
this year. And if I can put the training together, maybe I can go faster. You know, it's not flat like Chicago, but I also kind of like hills. So, and like the challenge of that race as well. So, and know the course.
Yes.
So I think I would be crazy not to try.
Yeah, go for it.
A goal, and then B goal would be fastest Boston ever. So we'll
Nice.
see. Can't wait.
Well, that's awesome. I'm so glad to hear kind of like your picture from when you first started to up to now in your own words. That's really great. So thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that.
Thanks for asking. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, we could talk about this all day.
totally. I can literally just sit here and do this. I have to set limits. So I'll just ask again about the race itself. You've already described it like beautifully about what the best things are, but like what would you say is the best thing and the worst thing about the Boston Marathon?
There's no worst thing about the
No,
Boston
zero worst
Marathon.
thing.
There's
Okay.
nothing. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I can't think of anything bad. I mean, yeah, now I have to buy plane tickets to get myself there. That's tricky. I mean, logistically it's hard. Yeah, it's on a Monday, but that's fun. It's that town. I love that town as well. It's
Yeah.
like a big little town.
Right. Hopkinton. Yeah.
And just
And Boston.
and all of it and the way that it opens up to us and the way that you're walking around the street and you know every person that you see has a story. I have a story, you have a story. Every single runner there is on a journey, and just the energy of that is just, it's something that's just so special. And all of the money that gets raised for charity,
Right.
and all of the good and positivity that happens with that. I can't think of anything bad about it. I really,
That's
really
great.
can't.
It's hard for some people to describe if they don't know, but like one of the reasons I'm doing this and interviewing the charge coaches and Susan and everyone is because there is that really, really strong connection. And I always feel a little bit guilty that all of us, you, me, and people who are connected to it have that connection, because if you're
Yeah.
from, I don't know, Iowa, Seattle, and you grew up not running the race, there's this really big connection you can get by kind of jumping into the Boston scene. And that's what I just want. I just want people to like start up their Boston life.
Yes, absolutely. And being able to, this year is just crazy, right? This is hard on runners, hard on people everywhere. But being able to keep that hope and that target is really, really special, because we're working towards something. And I know a lot of people, with this September Boston, it's hot. I mean, it's really hot here in Atlanta. So I have some friends who are going to be out there running, and I'll be out there running, and because it's Boston Day, and now it's Boston for Everybody Day. So even though I decided to officially sit this year out, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly.
And the race times might be a little different and the courses might be different, but we're still there together. I mean, we're brought together by this really cool shared experience, which I think is just so special. And that's what makes running special in general too. You've got all these people from different professions and different everything
Mm-hmm.
brought together by this one common thing. We're pretty lucky, I think.
Totally. Well, I'm
So,
fired up for it. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I can't wait
I'm
to get this out
excited.
to people. Yeah, me too. It's on track to be great.
I have no doubt that it is going to be absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to help in whatever capacity I can.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
you know, it's just keeping that hope and that dream alive, and we all just keep moving forward.